This is Nifty Culture. I'm Pio, and this afternoon I have the pleasure of speaking with very special guest of honor, if you will, Video Game Freak, VGF. How's it going, bro?
Doing well, senor. How are you?
I'm good, man. Good to have you on the show again. When you were here last time, you talked about Punk's comic. You talked about Justin Aversano, Twin Flames. I think you might have put me on at that point to that project, and we've interacted in some Twitter Spaces since then. Since then, you got hired full time at PixelVault. Big time congratulations there.
Thank you.
And yeah, man, I wanted to spend some time today talking about fractionalization. I think that this is an important thing to be talking about. Earlier today, I did a video with Michael Tant, and we talked about it. And I think that the market hasn't necessarily kind of picked up on it. And I think different players are going to be playing in the fractional space than the day trading space. So I wonder, just like broadly for you, what do you think of fractionalization? Do you think this is a big deal? Where
Oh,
can you
yeah.
see it going? Yeah, what are your thoughts?
So I think a couple of pieces there, right? There's the lowering of the point of entry, which I think is a big one, especially for a lot of these blue chip sort of artists or projects. You look at, the big one was the party bid on the zombie punk.
Yep.
A couple of the others, like Anonymous's fractionalization of the X copy one of one.
Yep.
Justin Aversano with his Sotheby's piece, another one that Anonymous was involved with.
Yep.
Some of these like really, really big blue chip, pieces that are being fractionalized to a much more approachable price point. Because like realistically, like, I mean, I can't go and, aspire to have an X copy one of one or something like that, at this point I'm kind of priced out, but having some of that fractionalized exposure to these otherwise incredible assets that you may not be able to, achieve otherwise. And I think it's really interesting to see that, there's even some of these sub communities, like you were talking about the dead token with the fractionalized zombie punk, and that we may see a lot of these, sort of communities building up around these individual assets. So I think it's between like fractionalization, party bid, and then the communities that can then be built upon those tokens. It's really sort of interesting to see sort of some of those DeFi mechanics being brought over into NFTs.
For sure. And that's what Michael Tant was talking about a lot. And it brings up so many interesting angles, like to be able to use these tokens as collateral and all
Mm-hmm.
that, and especially given the historical appreciation of artwork.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a brave new world on that front. Can you talk about Party Bid? What's the story with Party Bid?
So it's essentially like gamifying the front end of fractionalization, right? It's creating a platform where you can gather together and essentially group bid on a piece before it's fractionalized. So as opposed to like fractional.art where some people are putting up the assets that they own to be fractionalized in a Uniswap pool. Party bid is people collectively pooling their assets together to bid on an asset that has not yet been fractionalized. So it's kind of making the fractionalization even one step further removed, right? It's still using the same protocol. Like essentially, it's using the fractional.art execution on the back end, but allowing you to fractionalize, assets that have not yet been acquired.
And so, what's the benefit to me of getting involved with Party Bid? Like, why do I benefit from Party Bid versus just doing fractional if both are fractional?
So a couple things. I think experientially, it's really fun, especially when it's something that like, you just see somebody, people going crazy for, like the zombie punk being a really good example. But the other side of that being that you're almost generating the community at inception, right? That all of these people are coalescing around wanting fractionalized exposure to this project, and that that through the process they're able to come around and start generating this culture around this asset. I don't. It's a really like sort of almost half social experiment, half economic game. I don't think that fractionalization is right for every asset. Being that it's executed somewhat on like the protocol level, I would definitely not suggest just aping into every fractionalization on fractional art. There's a lot of those that have astronomical valuations, market valuations, and just from day one are not good buys. And then there's others that, like, once people buy into the liquidity pool and buy the tokens, they then have the opportunity to bid up what the market cap of those coins is, or what the buyout price should be, and then it can get unobtainable, right? The tokens are only worth as much as somebody is willing to pay for them. And
Right.
so if you're not having any liquidity on the back end, once you've bought into those tokens, you're kind of left holding the bag there. So there is some opportunity cost and risk towards buying into these fractionalizations, but at least for the blue chip ones, if they're at reasonable initial valuations and at somewhat, even if high but approachable price points for buyout, that you could see them 2, 3, 5xing in the next 6 months to a year, or 2, 3 years out. If you're willing to hold for that amount of time, it may be worth buying into. And for something like a punk, where I think a long enough of a time frame, many of us can see that reaching a pretty high valuation. That I think that's why that fractionalization was so successful.
And so, never financial advice, obviously, but what do you think of the current state of affairs with this fractional zombie punk? We're looking at an implied valuation of 4M. I don't think that that's that unreasonable, right? I mean, it's a zombie.
I mean, it's high, I think, but I don't think it's also unrealistic, right? Um, I forget what the last market buy of a zombie punk was, but I think it was somewhere in the ballpark of like 1.5 or $2 million. So seeing an implied valuation of 4 isn't super crazy, but I think the implied valuation when it was acquired was something like 1.5 or 2. Maybe you can correct me on that. But that just goes to show you that the people that acquired the tokens then bid up that price, and that based on the current trading price of those tokens, it's implied at $4 million. So the closer that implied valuation gets to the buyout price, the more appealing it is to somebody that may be able to go in and buy it.
Gotcha. And the buyout price on this is, or I guess, okay, there is what is 4.7 million. Right.
So see, that's not far off.
Right. So like literally, if someone could come in and buy this for 4.7M, and right now it's valued at just under 4.
That's yeah. So the closer those two numbers get together, the closer or more appealing it is for somebody to go and buy out the entire thing. At which point, anyone that has those tokens can go swap those tokens for the equivalent amount of Ethereum.
And so in theory, if the buyout does happen, and let's say you bought tokens now, you actually would benefit from that buyout, right? Like if it was at that
Correct.
reserve price, because there's a gap.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, this thing's going to get bought. Let's be real. Never financial
Eventually,
advice,
eventually, right? But that is the trade-off. Is people talk about like the time value of money? It's the time value of ETH. If you bought in for 10 Ethereum worth of tokens, the argument is that somewhat of a safe bet, knowing that it could be bought out at some point in the future. Or would that, Ethereum be better spent, in collecting other works that may appreciate more in that amount of time?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to think about when you start trading in assets that go up and down in value versus trading in fiat. There's a lot you have to keep in mind, and that's why I think people that are just getting into the space, they need to kind of think about all the different pieces of the puzzle, because we've seen a lot of like sort of disastrous activity from for newcomers in the past week or so. But we won't get into that. Okay, so fractionalization, I think it's here to stay. I think it's interesting.
Hmm.
One last bit, you work at PixelVault.
Hmm.
There is fractionalization options for owners of punk comics that decide to burn or stake, or just burn for fractionalization.
So we PixelVault was one of the founding partners of Fractional Art.
Okay.
You can actually go see the pool of the 16 underlying CryptoPunks that Punks Comics was based on, and part of the economics for it's actually on Fractional Art. You can go
Okay.
see the pool. Um, but yeah, so the 16 underlying CryptoPunks that the characters for Punks comic #1 were inspired by were fractionalized on Fractional Art, and there is a Punks token pool. However, it's not available for sale because those fractionalized tokens were essentially rewards for staking your Punks comic #1. There was a 50% pool of those tokens going towards those stakeholders, or those that stake, and then a 25% of those tokens that went to the founder's DAO. 25% of those tokens were withheld to PixelVault LLC, which was the only part of the project that they withheld for themselves.
All right. Well, there's a lot of tokens flying around everywhere. I feel like a newcomer's gonna be like, "What the hell are these guys talking about?" But basically, what we're
Yeah.
talking about is these assets were They were put forward by PixelVault. These 16 punks, not floor punks, very valuable punks. They were fractionalized in the sense that liquidity was raised by issuing tokens that represent ownership of the basket of CryptoPunks that was then, set. It was available to you if you took this action, right? In theory, they could have just made it available to the open market, but they elected to make it available to those that bought the Punks comic and then took action with it. Is that a simple way of me explaining it?
The only part that was it was accurate in general, but is not the case for PixelVault, is no equity was raised for this. This was simply a reward to those that bought Punk's comic #1 and or participated in the DAO,
Okay.
because those tokens aren't being sold; they're being divested into those that either stake their comic or have exposure to the DAO. So that was an incentive to buying Punk's comic #1, not a not for the purpose of raising funds for PixelVault.
Gotcha. If anything, it was just utility provided to those that buy the Punks comic project.
That's a good way to frame it. Yeah. So it's a utility of the NFT. It is not for the purpose of raising funds for PixelVault.
Gotcha. And I see what our audience is thinking here. Punk Boy just said, "What do you think of COVID punks?" So I think I'm going to save some more hard hitting questions for Video Game Freak, Punk Boy. I appreciate it though. So yeah, so fractionalization. Closing thoughts. Very interesting. Seems like right now you do pay a premium. But if you're going to go hard on, say, that zombie punk, and if we continue to trend in the direction that we're going in, like, no, never
Mm-hmm.
financial advice, but I'm kind of like, this thing's probably going to get bought out. But that's
Mm-hmm.
not to say that any old other project, even like something like maybe a Bored Ape, although obviously that's trending in the right direction too. But depending on how high the valuation, it seems like things are still getting shaken out in terms of premiums
Mm-hmm.
and how to structure this stuff long term so that it makes sense for both sides, for the investors and the people that hold the underlying assets.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Like, being that anyone can go and set up their own liquidity pool for their asset, anybody can fractionalize whatever. Um, Somebody could go in and fractionalize something that's worth nothing and
Right.
like have an insane valuation. It's not going to be worth buying into, right? So I look at what's the price point of buying into the liquidity pool, buying into those tokens. Is the reserve price realistic, at least to start, and if they were to, have a significant, sorry, tongue tied. If, a bunch of those tokens are bought up and bid, absolutely to a ridiculous valuation, is there going to be any desire or liquidity on the back end to be able to sell those tokens back out, take your gain or your little loss and, get out of that token. I would almost exclusively stick to blue chip artists or blue chip projects as a general recommendation, but there's definitely opportunities out there.
Yeah, I think what you said there at the end is perfect. The way I'm thinking about it is I would go super mainstream on this one. I would go super mainstream. Don't go to the indie band on this one. Go to like the pop star, and and just keep in mind that at the end of the day, it's not really a space for like wild speculation. If you're going to do like wild speculation with your ETH, maybe just stick to OpenSea, because speculating on something that's going to have no liquidity, like none, it's not going to end well for you. You're going to get wrecked.
Well, and I look at it really like, if you're looking for a hedged bet, right? If you see the direction that punks are trending and you can't yet afford a punk yourself, a pool of punks or a fractionalized punk is a great way to have exposure to that asset class that you otherwise would be priced out of. It's hedging your bet, getting some of that upside, and it's something that very realistically could have value in the future or appreciate in the near future. For a lot of these, fractionalizations, it may not be the case that it has any value in the future or even any value right now. And so it's kind of doing your own due diligence and your own research. All the same kind of principles apply. But it is a phenomenal opportunity for a lot of people to get some of that upside without having to fork over, 50, 100, 1,200 ETH in the case of the X copy,
Yeah, exactly. Gets you exposure to stuff that you otherwise are just completely priced out of, and that's going to be here to stay, and it exists in other places too, like stocks, so for sure. All right, so let's pivot to video games. Your name is VideoGameFreak, so I have to imagine that you're pretty well qualified to talk about this. I'm not a gamer myself. I was when I was younger, but not so much anymore. My understanding of gaming right now is that Axie Infinity made this massive splash, generating so much money. There seem to be some interesting factors that are coming into play, like this race to the bottom theory, where because Axie Infinity is like a grind it out sort of incentivized game, it's going to reward people that are willing to just put in the most time, and thus people that are in like third world countries and stuff will elect to do it. And before you know it, the whole user base could theoretically be people in countries like Venezuela and other, countries that have, kind of lower economic situations than, like, say, the United States. What are your thoughts on what comes next? What are your thoughts on where we're at, and what are your thoughts on, just like how this might affect the general NFT market, like the people that are playing on OpenSea and speculating?
So I think a couple parts to that. I do think that it has the potential to impact not only the NFT market, but also gaming as a whole. I think Axie has really proven out the play to earn model, much in the same way that, 5-6 years ago, Fortnite proved out the free to play. If you go back and look at, message boards and chat around Fortnite, many people didn't think that model would work. They were like, people won't play this, game and, do all these microtransactions and buy all these skins and stuff like that. Like, no, there's many people thought that wouldn't work. Axie has kind of proven out that you can build out incentive models to reward participants that play within your ecosystem. And now I think their challenge is, building a fun gameplay experience on top of that. I think that, it is largely a sort of grind to play the game. And I see it kind of going in two directions. One, that you're going to have people willing to accept less and less money in reward for playing in the ecosystem. And then two, that there's the people that would voluntarily make less money if they're having more fun playing the game. So I think it kind of works both ways, that it's sort of a polarizing, you know, inverse bell curve, that you're going to have those that are willing to accept less to play a better game, and then those that are going to change what game they're playing just to make the most money.
That's a really interesting thought, and it's also just making me feel more and more that video gaming is going to become like as common of a job as like being an accountant is right now, because I feel like this play to earn thing just is not going to go away, and what it's going to do is it's going to make it so that you don't have to be like Michael Tant was saying this morning, you don't have to be in the top 0.01% of video game players or the top 0.01% of like entertainers, as in like Twitch superstars, to be able to make a full-time living, a comfortable living playing video games. Like we'll see a full-blown middle class, you know, people that are just pretty good at the game, but they figured out, you know, crafty ways of making money through the models that are available. And, you know, when I start to think about that, I feel like the potential of video games with NFTs is amazing. And the gap that NFTs fill in the video game space is a gap that's, you know, we've been looking to have filled for a very, very long time. And just the sort of the technology, the permanence of it, the way it can be verified on a blockchain, all these things are very, you know, intuitive when you look at them in the video game space. But I guess what could you see happening in the next like 3 months with video games and NFTs? I think you're muted, bud. You can't hear me? VGF, I think you're muted. People watching, can you let me know if you can hear VGF? Because I cannot hear him. Can you guys hear me? Okay, they can't hear you, VGF. I don't know what happened. Might have lost you. Okay. I think okay. All right, bro. Well, maybe we'll have to keep this going on a Twitter space. This is YouTube rugging us right now. We totally got rugged. It's too bad. I was ready to hear what he was going to say about video games. I was excited. I was super excited. Yeah. All right. Now you get VGF. You there? All right, Punk Boy. You want to talk about punk derivatives, dude? Buy real projects at some point. You know? Yeah. I mean, like, there's just been so much drama with the punk derivatives recently, and it's just like, at the end of the day, buy a real project. You know what I mean? I get that some of them are funny to speculate on, but I do think that the market's reaction to the punk derivatives has been a little bit inappropriate. And the thing that you have to keep in mind is that at most, like maybe one of these things is going to end up lasting a long time and everything else is going to go to zero. And I think we might have VGF back.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. That was super bizarre. Like, as all of a sudden I lost you, and I was like, I think it was on my end. I apologize.
Hey, all good, man. So, you know, the question was video games in NFTs in the next 3 months. Can you make a crystal ball prediction on how this goes?
Ooh, 3 months? 3 months in particular?
Well, I mean, just like in the near future, right? Because the space moves so damn fast. 3 months is like a lifetime.
Yeah, so I do think that the play to earn model has sort of at this point been proven out. I think Axie Infinity in particular has a lot of runway to keep building. Like, I know that they have the land model still kind of being built out, and that their rewards still have a lot of room, you know. And when you look at their concurrent, you know, players, their average daily users, it's really just not that high given the volume that they're doing. So with their exposure to, you know, new countries and stuff like that, new player bases, I do think there's still a lot of opportunity there, even though it's somewhat quote unquote late in the game for Axie. Uh, but I think that over the next, you know, 6 months to a year to 2 years, we're going to see a lot more games coming out with some sort of play to earn mechanism involved. And that in that way, the ecosystem is only going to get stronger. You know, just about every you know, AAA studio is probably trying to figure out how they can implement a play to earn model into their ecosystem right now.
And there will be ways for players of the game and speculators slash traders to benefit from successful games like this. Like, I know the players will benefit because it's play to earn, right? You'll earn based on your play, but speculators will also be able to get involved.
Oh yeah, no. So similar to like Sandbox, right?
Yeah.
You have Sandbox with the Sand coin, like or you know, Axie with SLP. I think it's SLP. Um, Speculators will be able to speculate on the price of the coins that are the reward in the economy. So I think that the real incentive and reward is sort of that double-edged sword, right? Where the value attached to the coin comes from the participation in the community, but it doesn't mean that you can't also speculate on the price of the currency itself.
So speculation will stick around, and that's definitely good to hear for most of our audience looking for the alpha. You know, how are things going at PixelVault, man? Now that you're full time, I know that there's a lot you can't talk about. Is there anything that you can talk about to get people excited about?
Yes. So the Meta Heroes project, it was recently announced that there will not be a private sale because there was such a high demand for those mint passes that the remaining balance of those mint passes are going to go back to the community as community rewards. At least that something along those lines. That there were, you know, mint passes being you know, minted by PixelVault that I believe many of those will go back into the ecosystem, and then at some point we will know the total amount of meta heroes that are going to be in existence, and that off of that we'll then know kind of the total pool of how many playable of those original characters there will be. The game I can't really go too deeply into, but Beanie has kind of teased the world's model, that there will be DAOs for each planet, and that those the participation within those DAOs will be from the Meta Hero NFTs, and a burning staking mechanism there as well. So it's kind of it's like DAOception of like the DAO of PixelVault and the founders DAO, and then some of the rewards from Meta Heroes feeding back into that, and then participation of the Meta Heroes DAOs within that ecosystem, being the participation to those being the Meta Heroes themselves. So it's really interesting. It's definitely a rabbit hole. But when Beanie kind of, you know, throws out these teasers that that a lot of people really don't see what's coming, that's the one thing that I'll say probably isn't hyperbole on his part. It's very exciting. So having my little part to play in that is a lot of fun.
That's awesome, Ed. And everyone, you just heard it. It's exciting. We'll see what the story is when the time comes. Punk Boy, I'm not really actually upset about you buying fast food or COVID punks or whatever you want to buy. I was just kidding, but definitely buy real projects. This was while you were off camera, VGF. And you know, we're seeing so much so much new activity in NFTs. If you look at the numbers, if you look at the charts, the sales volumes on OpenSea, the number of new users, just people getting into the NFT space as speculators is going through the roof on a weekly, monthly basis. Like people are looking for the next Bored Apes. It's wild. And we're seeing it with our viewership and people that are starting to pay attention to our channel as well. For people that are brand new, I think some of this stuff that, someone like you that's so deep into the space can, they can find it confusing. Could you real quick give just a simple explanation to our viewers that might not know what is a DAO?
So a DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization. It's sort of an organizational structure in which the level of participation is governed by either a token or an NFT, or it can be a sort of a variety of things. But it enables a more equitable sort of participation structure or governance structure. And in PixelVault's case, it's going to be, the DAO token, the fuck render design DAO token, having control over what happens, to the assets contained within the DAO. The Lost Robbie, the one of ones from Robbie Trevino, Hackatow, Killer Acid, some of the 25 million punks tokens, the fractionalized punks ownership. And so the voting of the DAO is kind of being able to put up proposals and have fractional share say in what is done to those funds or those assets. And so, yeah, it's sort of a different infrastructure than sort of your traditional corporate hierarchy, where you have like CEO, board members, and VPs, and et cetera, et cetera. In this case, it's a much more sort of grassroots level of an organization structure, where everyone has a fractional fair say, if that makes sense.
Very well put. So everyone that just heard, that's what a DAO is, in case you were wondering. And they are they naturally fit in with the NFT space, right? Because everything's decentralized. You're in one part of the world, I'm in another part of the world. We can connect on Discord, and DAOs kind of live very much so on Discord. So any newcomers, because we get a lot of new questions right now, that was VGF's summary of what a DAO is. So, I know you got a hard stop coming up here, man. But I know that people, and you see it yourself, alpha is kind of king when it comes to content. People want the alpha, right? And so your alpha is going to be different than my alpha. That's going to be different than so-and-so's alpha. So I want to ask you, let's say you're a beginner, or forget about the framing. Let's say you have a half ETH to spend on an NFT or a group of NFTs right now as a speculative play. Say the time horizon is 2 weeks. What's going up? What's the alpha? Never financial advice.
Ooh, half an ETH. I would
Half an ETH.
say. Ooh, I would say right now, individual up and coming artists, one of ones, and or limited editions within bigger collections. So I look at some of these really exciting photographers in the NFT space that have some pretty approachable price points. Like I've bought multiple pieces in like the point 0.05 to 0.3 ETH range that are incredible works. And I always dial this back to like, if you collect what you like, then you don't lose, right? Even if it all goes to zero, at least you have a cool NFT and a piece of art to show for it. But if you look to the artists that are doing the right things, Juvish J is a photographer that I really enjoy both his work and how he presents himself, the content that he's putting out, a lot of the kind of backstory that he, spends the time putting these videos together to tell the story behind the NFTs. Really active, in Discord and on Twitter, doing all of sort of the right things. He's a little out of the 0.5 ETH range now, but there's absolutely incredible photographers that are that are putting out some pretty approachable, price points for otherwise great work, And I think that we're going to see a lot of the capital that's gone from these collectible projects. We saw the CryptoPunk floor get swept, the Bored Ape floor get swept, Art Blocks floor get swept, and I think a lot of the capital that those sellers had got is going to be going back into things other than collectibles. So I think we're seeing sort of a cultural pivot or a maturing of the market towards collecting things that you're actually going to, appreciate and enjoy along a longer time horizon. And that's where we're seeing, this sort of resurgence or jump in appreciation for photography, traditional fine artists, one of ones in particular, and those sort of snakes in the grass or needles in the haystack are the ones to really look out for right now, and that's where doing your own due diligence really comes into play. It's not a one size fits all. It's not like an easy answer, like throwing this one at you to because it's an easy home run. But that's where I think most people get caught, is a lot of people aren't willing to do the work to dig, to find what artists are doing like the right things, what artists are active in, actively participating on Twitter, are jumping into Twitter spaces to either promote their work or really share their stories. What artists are active in Discords and stuff like that. They're doing the right work to promote themselves, to share their story, to really market their work well. And then it's also really strong work, right? And so to me, that's the work that, if I see an artist doing all the right things and I appreciate their work, those are the artists that I'm most likely to try to support first.
And that takes real work, though. And a lot of people just want to know, what am I buying today, buddy? What am
Mhm.
I'm going to buy whatever you tell me. No, that's a very good response to that question. Here's a quick question. Did you get in on the Shy Modu photographs?
Just one, just one before I got priced out. Yeah. I didn't, so kind of kicking myself because I actually had the opportunity way back when to mint those when, or to pick up a few of those when they were, I mean, practically free, right? When they were originally minted, they were 0.01. And I found out about them not long after. I was in a couple of clubhouse rooms and, stuff like that very early on. But back then we weren't even sure if it was like authentic work, if it was
Right.
actually, published by Chi himself, and then sort of it kind of all came back around and was verified that it was actually him, that it was authentic work, that unfortunately he did pass. And so all of that, news and verification since then is really what's given it the legs. So the people that were able to collect those works super early on, the speculation was whether or not it was, even artwork that was able to be minted, or that was original work, right? And so it really just depends. I mean, I really love the work myself. They're iconic pictures. And so I think those still have a lot of opportunity to appreciate. But for many of those pieces, they're editions of 100, and so for many of them already above like an ETH floor, that's 100 ETH market cap per photo.
Yeah.
And and for many people that got in at 0.01, they've already appreciated over 100 times, right? And so while I do think there's room there, it's not, I don't necessarily think they have maybe 100x again on top of that. But again, kind of taking it back to, if it's artwork that you appreciate and it's at an affordable price point, you can't really lose if it all goes to zero. But in that case, I don't think it will. I do think that that's a collection that's here to stay. It's definitely a hallmark of sort of NFT photography. and it's just an incredibly strong collection.
Yeah, I wish I got in on it. I think I still might, but you make a really good point about just the quantity of mints. For perspective, like Justin Aversano's Twin Flames project is 100 photos total,
Yeah,
whereas
and
this is like
granted,
100 per.
he has he has a similar market cap per piece. I
Right.
think the
As
floor
this
is
whole
about
market
100
cap.
ETH right now. Yeah,
Oh,
but
Jesus.
as you said, he has 100 pieces in that collection. I think there's only 17 or 15 edition pieces in Cheese set, and then 2 1-of-1s. But yeah, I mean, it's a different kind of ball game when you're talking those editions and those edition sizes. But it's still such a strong, iconic collection that for me, just collecting the one piece even um, was one that I don't know that I'll sell, because it is one that um, you can keep forever and still be happy with it.
Who'd you get? Nas, Wu-Tang, who'd you get?
So yeah, if you go back to the, are you on OpenSea or Rarible?
I'm on OpenSea.
Oh, so like I don't even know that you'll be able to get back there because the whole
Yeah, it's
filtering of
such a
the
pain to find it.
filter. Yeah, so I think I have the Easy E lowrider, and
Really good.
at that point, I think I had gotten in when it was like 0.6 ETH, something like that. So even then, somebody had gotten like a 60x off their initial investment when I had got in. But it was so iconic and such a great photo that I wanted to collect it, for myself, selfishly, as a collector. And then I do think that it has a lot of room. I think it's appreciated even up to like almost 2 ETH now. So even as an investment, still a great return if I do decide to sell it. But I if and when it comes time to sell that piece, part of me will be struggling because I do really enjoy the piece.
I'm the same way, man. Like the Micah Johnson, Aku, the Moon God series, I have the first, all the chapters that are out right now, chapters 1, 2, and 3. And the collection of the 3 of them is worth like 10,000 right now, or maybe even a little bit more than 10,000. And it's like, I couldn't sell this thing, man. This is like a forever thing. And I think that it's going to go way up. So I know what you mean. And I like to make this joke. I made it with you before, if you're holding all this stuff that you love so much and it goes to zero, you're just bankrupt, man. That's not a bad place to be,
Yeah, it's funny because some of those jokes have been going around. Like when I sell NFTs, I only sell them to acquire more NFTs.
Right.
And then if it all goes to zero, you just got a whole bunch of really cool art. There's, I just kind of, again, reel it back to, if you collect what you enjoy, you can't really lose, as long as you're only playing with money that you can afford to lose. And if you're exposing yourself, with money that you can't afford to lose, you may not be playing the right game right now. So my 2 cents.
Wise words. Yeah, your 2 cents. I think they're worth more than 2 cents to a lot of people. Wise words from Video Game Freak. My man, thank you for coming on again, dude. Looking forward to crossing paths with you on Spaces. Everyone, make sure you follow VGF. It is at Video Game or at VG Freak XBL. He's constantly dropping knowledge. He's constantly in Spaces, doing this space every week on Mondays with Beanie, right?
Correct. Yeah, I think it's 10 a.m. Central Standard, or it might be 11 a.m. Pacific Standard. Sorry, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, which I think comes out to 8 a.m. Pacific Time. I don't know what's time anymore. Time dilates in the NFT space.
Yeah, just go on Twitter and you'll see him in a space.
Yeah, Beanie makes a post, every week, and then I usually retweet it. So if you go and find our Twitters, you'll find it coming up every Monday. We have an open mic, kind of giving a platform to those that may not have as big of megaphones, and kind of allowing everyone else the opportunity to share. We'll usually talk kind of the conversation topics of the week. We'll have some awesome guests, and then we usually try and save some time towards the end of the space to allow other people to get up on the stage and kind of shoot their shot. So It's been a lot of fun the last couple weeks, and we're definitely going to kind of try and expand on that and have some themed rooms as well, kind of doing a little bit of deep dives.
Epic, epic. Well, I can't wait. I hope to listen and to be able to participate, and I appreciate you letting me up there. Everyone, make sure you follow Video Game Freak and just pay attention to what he's doing in the space. VGF, good kicking it, man.
Appreciate you. Sorry about the technical difficulties there.
No worries at all.